Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Travel Stories. Tonight, we're traveling together to one of the most ancient and mysterious places on our planet. We're going to the Sahara Desert, to a place where the sand stretches endlessly beneath a canopy of stars so bright, so impossibly clear, that you might feel as though you've stepped into another world entirely. This is a journey about sleeping under those stars, about experiencing a night in the desert for the very first time, when everything is new and strange and beautiful beyond words. The Sahara. Even the name carries weight, doesn't it? It comes from the Arabic word for desert, and truly there is no better word for it. This is Earth's largest hot desert, spreading across nearly 9.2 million square kilometers of northern Africa. To put that in perspective, the Sahara is roughly the same size as the entire United States, or about as large as China. It stretches from the Atlantic Ocean in the west all the way to the Red Sea in the east, a distance of nearly 5,000 kilometers. From north to south, it spans anywhere from 800 to 1,800 kilometers, reaching across 11 different countries. But these numbers, as staggering as they are, don't truly capture what the Sahara feels like. They don't tell you about the quality of the light there, or the particular shade of gold that the sand takes on as the sun begins its descent. They don't convey the silence or the way your footprints disappear within hours, erased by wind that has been blowing across these dunes for millions of years. For our journey tonight, we're heading to a specific part of this vast desert. We're going to the Erg Chebi Dunes, located in southeastern Morocco, near a small village called Merzouga. This is one of the most accessible gateways to the true Sahara experience, and it's here that many travelers, myself included, first encounter the reality of sleeping under desert stars. The word Erg itself means a sea of sand, and Erg Chebi is indeed a sea of golden dunes that rise and fall like frozen waves, some reaching heights of 150 meters or more. The journey to reach this place is part of the experience. You don't simply arrive at the Sahara, you travel toward it, watching the landscape transform around you with each passing kilometer. Perhaps you've started from Marrakesh or Fez, driving for 7 or 8 hours through the high Atlas Mountains, through valleys where rivers still flow and palm trees cluster in green oases, through ancient Casbahs built from the same red earth that surrounds them. As you travel, you notice the green slowly fading, the vegetation becomes sparser. The earth takes on a reddish hue, then transitions to something closer to ochre, then to a pale tan. Palm groves become less frequent, appearing only near underground water sources. Small villages dot the landscape, their buildings constructed from adobe and stone, blending seamlessly with the desert around them. There's a particular moment on this journey that stays with everyone who makes it. It's the moment when you first see the dunes of Erg Chebi rising on the horizon. At first, you might not be certain what you're seeing. The dunes appear almost like a mirage, a long ridge of deep orange and gold that seems to shimmer in the distance. As you draw closer, the scale becomes apparent. These aren't small hills of sand. These are mountains, sculpted by wind into perfect curves and sharp ridges, their surfaces marked by ripples that flow down from the peaks like frozen water. The approach to Mazuga village is surreal. On one side of the road, you might see ordinary houses, a few shops, perhaps a soccer field where children play in the afternoon. On the other side, less than a kilometer away, the great dunes rise up, utterly dominating the landscape. It's as though two entirely different worlds exist side by side, separated by nothing more than a stretch of stony ground. When you arrive in Mazuga, there's a transition period. You're still in what might be considered civilization, but you can feel the desert's pull. The air is different here, drier, carrying a faint scent of sand and sun-heated earth. The light has a particular quality, clearer somehow, sharper. In the distance, you can see the dunes waiting, and you know that soon you'll be among them. The actual journey into the dunes often happens in the late afternoon. This is intentional. The midday heat in the Sahara, particularly in the warmer months, can be overwhelming. Temperatures can climb beyond 40 degrees Celsius, sometimes reaching as high as 50 degrees in the summer months. But in the late afternoon, as the sun begins its descent toward the horizon, the heat becomes more bearable. The light softens, and the dunes take on their most beautiful colors. There are different ways to make this journey into the desert. Some people arrive by a four-wheel drive vehicle, bouncing across the sand in sturdy Land Cruisers that can navigate the dunes. Others choose to walk, taking their time to feel the sand beneath their feet, to experience the subtle shifts in the landscape at a human pace. But the most traditional method, and perhaps the most iconic, is by camel. The camels used for these journeys are dromedaries, the single-humped Arabian camels that have been domesticated in this region for thousands of years. These remarkable animals are perfectly adapted for desert life. Their humps don't store water, as many people believe, but rather fat, which they can metabolize for energy and hydration when food and water are scarce. They can go for more than a week without drinking and several months without eating. Their broad, padded feet distribute their weight across the sand, allowing them to walk easily across surfaces that would trap smaller-footed animals. Their long eyelashes and the ability to close their nostrils protect them from blowing sand. Climbing onto a camel for the first time is an adventure in itself. These are large animals standing about 2 meters tall at the shoulder, and when they're sitting down, you have to step carefully to mount them. Then comes the moment when they stand up. Camels rise in a distinctive way, back legs first, which pitches you forward alarmingly, then front legs, which throws you backward. Once you're up though, and the camel begins to walk, there's a particular rhythm to the movement. It's a rolling, swaying gait, surprisingly smooth once you adjust to it. The height gives you a different perspective on the desert, allowing you to see farther across the dunes. The journey into the dunes takes perhaps 45 minutes to an hour, depending on where your camp is located. During this time, you're traveling deeper into the erg, leaving behind all traces of the modern world. There are no power lines here, no buildings, no roads, just sand and sky and the occasional hardy plant that has found a way to survive in this harsh environment. As you travel, you begin to notice details. The way the sand changes color as the sun moves across the sky. The patterns that the wind has etched into the dune surfaces, creating ripples that can be as small as your finger or as large as your arm. The tracks of desert creatures, delicate prints left by beetles or small rodents, crisscrossing the sand in mysterious paths. Here and there, you might see a tuft of desert grass, its roots reaching deep into the sand to find moisture. The silence grows deeper as you move farther from the village. In the modern world, we're rarely truly distant from human-made sound. Even in quiet places, there's often the distant hum of traffic, the overhead passage of an airplane, the buzz of electrical equipment. But here, in the heart of the dunes, there's nothing. The silence is so complete that you can hear the whisper of sand grains sliding down the face of a dune, the soft footfalls of the camels, your own breathing. And then you arrive. The camp appears nestled between dunes, a small cluster of tents arranged in a circle. These tents vary in their level of luxury. Some are simple, traditional structures made from woven camel hair or heavy fabric. furnished with mattresses and blankets. Others are more elaborate, with private bathrooms, thick carpets, and ornate decorations. But regardless of their level of comfort, they all share one essential quality. They open up to the desert, to the dunes, to the sky. The first thing many people do upon arriving is walk. After sitting on a camel for the better part of an hour, your legs want to move. But more than that, there's an irresistible urge to explore, to climb one of the nearby dunes and see what lies beyond. And so you walk, and immediately you understand why the Sahara is sometimes called the Sand Sea. Walking up a dune is remarkably similar to walking up a beach. With each step, your foot sinks into the sand. The surface layer is warm from the sun, but if you dig down even a few centimeters, the sand below is surprisingly cool. As you climb higher, you might need to use your hands, grabbing at the sand as you pull yourself up the steeper sections. Reaching the crest of a dune is a moment of revelation. Suddenly, you can see in all directions, and what you see is more dunes, extending to the horizon in every direction, their curves and ridges creating a landscape that is both monotonous and infinitely varied. Each dune is unique, shaped by the prevailing winds into its own particular form. Some are crescent-shaped, called Barjan dunes, with their horns pointing downwind. Others are long and linear, stretching for kilometers. Still others are star dunes, with multiple arms radiating from a central peak, created by winds that blow from different directions. The colors of the sand are not uniform. Depending on the angle of the light and the composition of the sand itself, you might see shades ranging from pale cream to deep rust orange. The Erg Chebi dunes are known for their particularly vivid orange and red hues, which come from the iron oxide in the sand. These colors intensify as the afternoon progresses, deepening and warming as the sun moves lower in the sky. Sitting atop a dune in the late afternoon, watching the light change is a form of meditation. The vastness of the landscape puts your own concerns into perspective. The silence allows your mind to slow down, to stop its constant chatter. You become aware of small things, the temperature of the breeze on your face, the particular texture of the sand beneath your fingers, the way shadows lengthen across the dunes as the sun descends. As sunset approaches, there's a gathering quality to the experience. Other travelers might climb nearby dunes, seeking their own perfect vantage point. There's a shared understanding that something special is about to happen. In the camp below, preparations are being made for the evening. You might see thin trails of smoke rising from cooking fires, smell the scent of tagine or freshly baked bread carrying on the breeze. The sunset in the Sahara is unlike any other. Without moisture in the air to diffuse the light, without pollution or clouds to filter it, the colors are pure and intense. The sun seems larger somehow as it approaches the horizon, a perfect disk of burning gold. The sky around it transitions through shades of blue, from the deep azure of daytime to something paler, almost turquoise. Then, as the sun touches the horizon, the colors begin. First comes gold, pure and radiant, spreading across the western sky. Then orange, deepening to amber. Red appears, not a bright crimson, but a softer, dustier shade, like rose petals or old brick. Pink follows, delicate and unexpected in this harsh landscape. The dunes themselves seem to glow, reflecting and amplifying these colors until the entire desert appears to be on fire with gentle light. This display doesn't last long, perhaps 15 or 20 minutes from the moment the sun touches the horizon until it disappears completely. But the quality of those minutes is extraordinary. Everything seems to slow down. The breeze often dies away at sunset, leaving perfect stillness. Even the birds, if there are any, fall silent. You watch, transfixed, as the sun sinks lower and lower, until finally it slips below the edge of the world, leaving behind a sky that continues to glow for several minutes more. The transition from day to night in the desert is swift. Without the atmospheric moisture that creates long twilights in other climates, darkness comes quickly. The brilliant colors of sunset fade first to pastels, then to gray, then to the deep blue of dusk. Stars begin to appear, faint at first, just a handful of the brightest ones. Venus, if it's in the evening sky, might be visible even before the sun has fully set, shining with a steady, brilliant light. As the sky darkens, more stars emerge. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. Within an hour of sunset, the entire celestial sphere is revealed in a display that most modern humans never see. The Milky Way arches across the sky, not a faint smudge, but a river of light, dense and textured, clearly showing its structure of countless stars too distant to resolve individually. This is why people come to the Sahara. This is the experience that stays with them long after they've returned to their normal lives. Standing beneath this sky, you understand viscerally that you are on a planet, a small world spinning through an incomprehensibly vast universe. The stars you're seeing aren't pinpricks in some celestial dome. They're suns, many of them far larger than our own, scattered across distances that the human mind can barely grasp. With no light pollution to dim them, the stars shine with an intensity that can actually cast shadows. On a night when the moon is absent or hasn't yet risen, the starlight alone is bright enough to see by. You can make out the shapes of the dunes, the silhouettes of the tents, the figures of people moving about the camp. Everything is rendered in shades of silver and black, like a photograph from an earlier era. Identifying constellations is easier here than almost anywhere else on Earth. Orion is unmistakable, with his belt and sword, his bright shoulders marked by Betelgeuse and Bellatrix. The Big Dipper, part of Ursa Major, the Great Bear, is clearly visible in the northern sky, its bowl and handle formed by 7 bright stars. If you draw a line from the 2 stars at the edge of the Dipper's bowl and extend it, you'll find Polaris, the North Star, which has guided travelers for thousands of years. In the southern part of the sky, depending on the time of year, you might see Scorpius with its bright red heart, the star Antares. The constellation's curving tail and raised stinger are clearly visible, making it one of the few constellations that actually resembles what it's named for. Nearby, you might spot Sagittarius, marked by a pattern of stars that some see as a teapot. Planets, when they're visible, shine with a different quality than stars. They don't twinkle. Instead, they glow with a steady, often colorful light. Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, shines brilliantly white or slightly cream-colored. Saturn has a golden hue. Mars, when it's visible, is distinctly reddish, living up to its nickname as the Red Planet. As the night deepens, you might see meteors, shooting stars that streak across the sky in brief flashes of light. These are tiny pieces of space debris, often no larger than a grain of sand, burning up as they enter Earth's atmosphere at tremendous speeds. On a good night in the Sahara, far from any light pollution, you might see a meteor every few minutes. During meteor showers, like the Perseids in August or the Geminids in December, the rate can increase to dozens per hour, creating a celestial fireworks display. The Milky Way, though, is the true revelation for most people. This band of light that stretches across the sky is our view of our own galaxy from the inside. The Milky Way is a spiral galaxy containing somewhere between 200 and 400 billion stars. and we're located about halfway out from its center in one of its spiral arms. When we look at the Milky Way, we're looking toward the galaxy's core, seeing the combined light of billions of stars that are too distant for our eyes to separate into individual points of light. In the Sahara, the Milky Way is so bright that you can see its structure, its variations in brightness and darkness. The dark lanes within it aren't absence of stars, but dust clouds within our galaxy, blocking the light from stars beyond. These dust clouds are often stellar nurseries, regions where new stars are being born from the gravitational collapse of gas and dust. Back in the camp, as full darkness falls, the evening activities begin. The Berber people, who are the indigenous inhabitants of much of North Africa, including the Sahara, have a rich cultural tradition that they often share with visitors. Around a campfire, which provides both light and warmth as the temperature begins to drop, you might be invited to experience Berber music and storytelling. The music is distinctive, built around percussion and stringed instruments. The bendir is a large frame drum played with the hands, creating rhythms that can be both subtle and complex. The rebab is a stringed instrument, something like a fiddle, producing melancholic melodies that seem to capture the spirit of the desert itself. The krakeb are hand cymbals, adding brightness and accent to the rhythms. As the musicians play, they might begin to sing, often in Tamazight, the Berber language. The songs tell stories, some ancient, some more recent, about life in the desert, about love and loss, about the challenges and beauties of this harsh landscape. Even if you don't understand the words, the emotion comes through clearly, conveyed by the rise and fall of the melody, the intensity of the rhythm, the expression in the singers' voices. The storytelling tradition in Berber culture is oral, passed down through generations. Stories explain the world, teach lessons, preserve history. You might hear legends about how certain features of the landscape came to be. One popular story tells how the Chebi dunes themselves were created as divine punishment, sent by God to bury a wealthy family who refused hospitality to a poor woman and her child. The lesson about the importance of generosity and hospitality to travelers is clear, and it reflects values that remain central to Berber culture today. The warmth of the campfire is both literal and metaphorical. As the night progresses, the temperature drops significantly. This is one of the surprising aspects of the desert for many first-time visitors. While days can be scorchingly hot, particularly in summer, nights can be quite cold. The desert air is so dry that it holds very little heat. As soon as the sun sets and is no longer pumping energy into the system, temperatures can plummet. A swing from 40 degrees Celsius during the day to near freezing at night is not uncommon, particularly in winter. This dramatic temperature variation has shaped life in the desert. The Berber clothing, which might seem heavy and impractical to an outsider, makes perfect sense in this context. The long, flowing robes and head wrappings protect from the sun during the day and provide insulation at night. The traditional dark blue garments, worn by many Tuareg and Berber men, actually serve multiple purposes. The color helps with heat management, and the indigo dye has properties that can help soothe sun-damaged skin. Dinner in a desert camp is an experience that engages all the senses. The meal is usually a traditional Moroccan tagine, named for the distinctive conical clay pot it's cooked in. The tagine design is ingenious for desert cooking. The cone-shaped lid causes steam to condense and drip back into the pot, keeping the food moist despite the dry air and allowing for slow cooking with minimal water. The tagine might contain tender lamb or chicken, slow cooked with vegetables like carrots, potatoes, and olives, flavored with spices like cumin, coriander, and saffron. Or it might be a vegetarian version with chickpeas and seasonal vegetables in a rich tomato-based sauce. Alongside the tagine, there's usually fresh bread, often baked in a traditional clay oven, partially buried in the sand. The bread is round and flat, perfect for tearing and using to scoop up the tagine sauce. As you eat, sitting perhaps on low cushions around a communal table, or even on carpets spread on the sand, you're aware of the stars overhead. The fire casts flickering shadows, creating a circle of warm light in the vast darkness of the desert night. Conversations flow easily in this setting. There's something about sitting around the fire under the stars that encourages people to talk, to share stories, to connect. After dinner, as the fire burns lower, there's often a period of music and sometimes dancing. The rhythms of the bendir seem to match the beating of your heart, and before you know it, you might find yourself on your feet, attempting to follow the steps of a traditional Berber dance. The movements are simple but energetic, and everyone, regardless of skill level, is encouraged to participate. It's joyful and slightly chaotic, and absolutely part of the experience. Eventually, though, the music quiets. People begin to drift away from the fire, some heading to their tents, others simply finding a place to sit or lie down and look up at the sky. This is when the true magic of sleeping under Saharan stars begins. Many camps offer the option of sleeping outside, under the open sky, rather than in a tent. Some people are hesitant at first, concerned about insects or temperature, or simply the unfamiliarity of it. But those who choose this option almost invariably describe it as the highlight of their desert experience. The sleeping arrangements are simple: a mattress or thick pad laid directly on the sand, blankets for warmth, and pillows. That's all you need. Some camps provide sleeping bags. Others rely on traditional heavy blankets that have been used in the desert for generations. The key is having enough layers, because as the night progresses, the temperature will continue to drop. Lying back on your makeshift bed, you find yourself face to face with the universe. The sky fills your entire field of vision, an endless expanse of darkness, scattered with points of light. Your eyes continue to adjust to the darkness, and as they do, you see more and more stars. What started as thousands becomes tens of thousands. The view is literally dizzying, as though you might fall upward into that infinite space. The silence at night in the Sahara is as profound as the darkness. With the music ended and the fire died down to embers, with no artificial sounds to mask it, you become aware of just how quiet the desert can be. You hear the faint whisper of wind moving across the sand, a sound so soft it's barely there. You hear the gentle crackle of a cooling tent, the fabric contracting as the temperature drops. You might hear distant voices from the camp, but they seem to float in from another world, dissipating into the vastness. In this silence, your other senses seem to sharpen. You become acutely aware of the temperature, the way the air feels on your exposed face, noticeably cooler than the warmth trapped beneath your blankets. You can smell the desert, a scent that's hard to describe but unmistakable once you've encountered it. Dry and clean, with hints of sun-baked sand and the faint aromatic trace of desert plants. Sometimes you might hear the soft footfall of someone walking nearby, the almost inaudible hiss of sand shifting beneath their feet, or perhaps the distant call of a desert creature, a fox or a small rodent, going about its nocturnal business. These sounds don't break the silence so much as emphasize it, like a single note in a vast empty hall. As you lie there, wrapped in blankets, staring up at the stars, thoughts come and go like clouds across a daytime sky. Some people find themselves thinking about their lives, seeing their daily concerns from a new perspective. The vastness of the desert, the age of the starlight falling on your face, light that left those distant suns years, decades, or even centuries ago, puts human troubles into context. That argument at work, that worry about money, that lingering regret, they don't disappear, but they shrink somehow, becoming more manageable. Others find their minds going quiet, entering a state that's not quite meditation, but something close to it. The rhythm of your breathing slows and deepens. Your body relaxes into the mattress, into the sand beneath it. Time seems to slow down, or perhaps to become irrelevant. You might lie there for an hour or 2 or 3, and it feels like both an instant and an eternity. Occasionally, a satellite passes overhead, a steady point of light moving at a stately pace across the sky, taking perhaps 3 or 4 minutes to traverse from horizon to horizon. It's a reminder that even in this ancient landscape, the modern world persists, that there are people up there in space, orbiting the planet, conducting experiments, and looking down at Earth from a perspective that would have been unimaginable to the travelers who crossed these same sands centuries ago. The stars themselves seem close enough to touch. You find yourself reaching up, your hands silhouetted against the Milky Way, fingers seeming to brush against distant suns. It's a childish gesture, perhaps, but something about this place, this experience, brings out that sense of wonder that we often lose as we grow older. As the night deepens toward its darkest point, usually around 2 or 3 in the morning, the temperature reaches its lowest. Even with blankets, you might feel cold, might need to pull the covers up around your shoulders, leaving just your face exposed. Your breath mists in the cold air, visible for a moment before dissipating. This is also the time when the night sounds are most noticeable. Desert animals are often nocturnal, staying hidden during the day to avoid the heat. At night, they emerge. You might hear the distinctive yip of a fennec fox, the smallest fox in the world, with enormous ears that help it dissipate heat and locate prey in the darkness. Or the rustle of a jerboa, a small rodent that looks like a tiny kangaroo, hopping across the sand on its oversized hind legs. If you're lucky, you might witness the desert's most heat-tolerant resident, the Saharan silver ant. These remarkable insects only emerge during the hottest part of the day, when temperatures can exceed 50 degrees Celsius, because at those times their predators cannot tolerate the heat. They're the fastest ants in the world, racing across the sand at speeds that, relative to their body size, would be equivalent to a human running at over 700 kilometers per hour. But at night, they're safely hidden in their underground colonies. More likely, you'll see the tracks these creatures leave rather than the animals themselves. In the morning, when the low angle of the sun creates strong shadows, the sand around the camp will be crisscrossed with delicate prints. The tiny marks of beetles, the larger tracks of foxes, the distinctive hopping pattern of jerboas, perhaps the side-winding trail of a sand viper. Thinking about the sand viper might make you momentarily nervous about sleeping on the ground, but there's little to fear. These snakes are highly adapted to the desert and generally want nothing to do with humans. They hunt small rodents and birds, and they spend their days buried beneath the sand to escape the heat. At night, while they're active, they're hunting for prey much smaller than you, and they'll avoid large creatures like humans, if at all possible. The same is true of scorpions, including the famous deathstalker scorpion found in the Sahara. Despite their fearsome reputation and potent venom, they're quite small, usually only about 8 centimeters long, and they're more interested in finding insects to eat than bothering with humans. Scorpions are nocturnal and spend their days hidden under rocks or in burrows. If you were to shine an ultraviolet light across the desert at night, their bodies would glow an eerie greenish blue, making them easy to spot. But really, as you lie there under the stars, these concerns feel distant. The desert has been home to humans for thousands of years. The Berber people have been living in and traveling through the Sahara for millennia, developing deep knowledge of how to coexist with its wildlife. The modern camps are set up in areas where encounters with potentially dangerous creatures are highly unlikely, and your hosts know how to minimize any risks. As the night progresses, the sky itself begins to shift. The rotation of the Earth causes the stars to appear to wheel slowly across the sky, following arcs that, if you watched long enough, you'd see complete full circles around the celestial poles. Constellations that were low on the eastern horizon when you first lay down have now climbed high into the sky. Others, which were overhead earlier, have moved toward the west, heading toward the horizon where they'll eventually set. The Milky Way too changes its position, its arch across the sky shifting as the hours pass. If you're there during the summer months in the northern hemisphere, the galactic center, the densest, brightest part of the Milky Way, is visible for at least part of the night, rising in the southeast and arcing across the southern sky. This is the direction towards the actual center of our galaxy, located about 26,000 light years away from Earth. At some point during the night, the moon might rise if it's at the right phase. A full moon in the Sahara is extraordinary. It rises slowly, seeming enormous when it first appears on the horizon, an optical illusion caused by the lack of reference points in the desert landscape. As it climbs higher, it shrinks to its normal size, but seems to glow brighter than you've ever seen it. The moonlight is strong enough to cast clear shadows, to illuminate the dunes, almost as if it were day, though the light is silver and strange rather than golden. The moonlight does dim the stars, making the fainter ones disappear and even making the Milky Way harder to see. But it transforms the desert in a different way, creating a landscape of silver and shadow, the dunes taking on new contours, the textures of the sand rendered in exquisite detail by the low angle light. If you're there during a new moon, when the moon is dark and doesn't rise until the sun does, the night is at its darkest and the stars at their brightest. This is the best time for seeing the full glory of the Milky Way, for counting meteors, for really understanding what humans saw when they looked up at the night sky before the invention of artificial light. Sleep, when it comes, is different here. Perhaps it's the fresh air, so much cleaner than what most of us breathe in cities. Perhaps it's the physical tiredness from a day of travel and walking in the sand. Perhaps it's the profound quiet or the gentle coolness of the night air, or simply the novelty of the experience. Whatever the reason, sleep in the Sahara is often described as uniquely restful. Your dreams, if you remember them, might be strange and vivid. The unfamiliar sounds of the desert, the different quality of the darkness, the unusual temperature, all of these can influence your sleeping mind. Some people dream of flying or floating, perhaps influenced by lying beneath such a vast sky. Others dream of water, their subconscious minds responding to the extreme dryness of the environment. Still others dream of the deep past, of the time millions of years ago when the Sahara was green and wet, covered with lakes and rivers and savannas, home to elephants and hippos and crocodiles. Because yes, the Sahara wasn't always a desert. Cave paintings found in the mountains of the Sahara depict these animals, alongside images of people herding cattle and living in settlements. These paintings are thousands of years old, created when the climate was very different. The Sahara has cycled between wet and dry periods for millions of years, driven by changes in the Earth's orbit and axial tilt. The current desert phase began about 5,000 years ago. and is expected to last for another 15,000 years before the climate shifts again and the desert blooms. In the pre-dawn hours, the coldest part of the night, you might wake briefly. The sky is still dark, the stars still bright, but there's a different quality to the darkness now. It's not as dense, as absolute. On the eastern horizon, there might be the faintest suggestion of light, barely perceptible, not really a glow, but more an absence of complete blackness. This is the hour when the desert is at its most quiet. Even the nocturnal animals have mostly settled down. The wind, which often picks up at sunset and dawn, has died away. The temperature has reached its minimum. If you have a thermometer, you might find it reading close to 0 degrees Celsius or even below, particularly in the winter months. Pulling your blankets tighter, you might drift back to sleep for another hour or so, or you might choose to stay awake to watch the gradual transformation of the sky as night yields to day. It's a slow process, taking perhaps an hour from the first faint lightening of the east until the sun actually appears. As astronomical twilight begins, the very brightest stars start to fade, overwhelmed by the growing background light in the sky. Venus, if it's in the morning sky, shines brilliantly in the east, heralding the sun's approach. The planet is so bright during these times that it's often called the morning star or the day star, though of course it's not a star at all but a planet, the second from the sun, roughly the same size as Earth, but with a thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide that creates a runaway greenhouse effect. As the light increases, the sky passes through a series of colors. Deep navy blue first, then lighter blue, then a pale turquoise. The western sky, opposite the sunrise, takes on a rosy hue, the light from the approaching sun reflecting off the upper atmosphere. This phenomenon is called the belt of Venus, and it's followed by a darker blue-gray band called Earth's shadow, which is exactly what it sounds like. The shadow of the Earth itself, projected onto the atmosphere. In the east, the colors intensify. Deep blue gives way to lighter blue, then to green-tinged blue, then to gold. Clouds, if there are any, light up first, catching the sun's rays while the ground is still in darkness. But in the Sahara, clouds are rare, and more often the sky is clear, allowing you to see the full progression of colors. The moment just before sunrise is special. The sky is bright, painted with gold and orange and pink, but the sun itself hasn't yet appeared. The temperature is still cold, the coldest it will be all day, and the breeze picks up slightly. Everything seems to hold its breath, waiting. And then the sun appears, not all at once, but gradually, a brilliant point of light peeking over the horizon. It's so bright that you can't look directly at it, but you can see its effects. The entire eastern sky blazes with light. The dunes catch the first rays, their eastern faces lighting up golden while their western faces remain in shadow, creating a dramatic interplay of light and dark. As the sun climbs higher, moving faster than you might expect, the warmth reaches you. First, it's just on your face, a gentle heat after the cold of the night. Then, as the sun rises further, it warms your entire body. If you're still lying down, you might feel the warmth penetrating your blankets, creating a cocoon of comfort that makes it difficult to get up. But eventually, you do rise, and the day has begun. Around you, the camp is waking up. You might see people emerging from their tents, stretching, walking up nearby dunes to get a better view of the sunrise. The Berber hosts are already up, having risen before the guests to prepare breakfast. The smell of fresh mint tea reaches you, along with the scent of bread baking. Walking across the sand in the early morning is a different experience than it was the evening before. The surface of the sand is cool now, not yet warmed by the sun, and it's firmer, compacted by the cool temperature. Your footprints are crisp and clear in this sand, and looking around, you can see the night story written in tracks. Here, a beetle crossed the sand, leaving a delicate line of tiny prints. There, a larger creature, perhaps a fox, trotted past, its paw prints clear in the smooth sand. The dunes themselves look different in morning light than they did at sunset. The shadows fall in different directions, creating different patterns. Colors that were deep orange and red in the evening light are now softer, more golden, though they'll intensify again as the day progresses and the sun climbs higher. If you have time before breakfast, you might climb one of the nearby dunes for a final view. The climb is easier in the morning when you're rested and the sand is firmer and cooler. From the top, you can see far across the desert, watching as the light continues to change, as shadows shift and colors evolve. Looking back toward where you slept, you might see your mattress and blankets small and temporary against the vastness of the sand. Last night, lying there under the stars, that spot was your entire world, a small island of warmth and safety in an infinite universe. Now, in daylight, it's just a mattress on the sand, and soon it will be rolled up and carried away, and the wind will erase the slight indentation it made, and there will be no sign that you were ever there. This impermanence is part of the desert's appeal. Nothing lasts here. Footprints vanish within hours or days. Sand dunes migrate, moving slowly across the landscape, advancing meter by meter as wind pushes grains from the windward side to the leeward side. Over decades and centuries, the entire landscape reshapes itself. The dune you climbed this morning might not be here 100 years from now, or it might have moved 100 meters to the east, or grown taller, or become smaller. Breakfast in the desert is simple but satisfying. Fresh bread, still warm from the oven, served with butter and jam and honey. Hard-boiled eggs, olives, cheese, fresh oranges or other fruit, and of course, mint tea, the ubiquitous Moroccan beverage, served in small glasses, sweet and hot and refreshing despite the heat. As you eat, sitting perhaps at a low table in the common tent, or outside in the growing warmth of the morning sun, you might find yourself already nostalgic for the experience that's ending. Last night, sleeping under those stars seemed to last forever, and also to be over in an instant. The memory of it is already taking on a dreamlike quality, even though it was just a few hours ago. People often ask if one night in the desert is enough. The answer is both yes and no. Yes, because one night is enough to have the essential experience, to see the stars, to feel the vastness, to sleep under that impossible sky. No, because one night only hints at the deeper experience of the desert, the way it gets into your bones if you spend more time there, the way your rhythms begin to match its rhythms, the way you start to notice subtleties that aren't apparent on a short visit. The Sahara is a place of extremes, yes, but it's also a place of nuances. The way the light changes throughout the day is just the most obvious example. But there are others. The different textures of sand, from coarse and pebbly in some areas to fine and powdery in others. The variety of colors, not just in the sand, but in the occasional stones you might find, or in the sky, or in the rare plants. The sounds, from the whisper of wind to the surprising variety of bird calls in areas near oases or water sources. There's wildlife here too, more than you might expect. About 260 species of animals call the Sahara home, from large mammals like the addax antelope and the Barbary sheep, to smaller creatures like the fennec fox and the various species of jerboa. There are reptiles, including sand vipers and lizards, and even a few species that have adapted to live in the harsh desert conditions. There are birds, from ostriches to various raptors to smaller species that live near the oases. most of these creatures you'll never see. They're adapted to avoid the heat of the day, and they're wary of humans. But knowing they're there, seeing their tracks in the sand, perhaps glimpsing a distant shape that might be a gazelle or a fox, this adds another dimension to the desert experience. This isn't a dead place, despite appearances. It's alive, teeming with organisms that have found remarkable ways to survive in conditions that would kill less adapted species within hours. The adaptations these creatures have developed are extraordinary, testaments to the power of evolution to solve seemingly impossible problems. Take the fennec fox, for instance. This tiny fox, weighing only about 1.5 kilograms when fully grown, is the smallest fox species in the world. Its most distinctive feature is its enormous ears, which can be as long as 15 centimeters, about half the length of its body. These ears aren't just for show or for hearing, though they do give the fennec excellent hearing that helps it locate prey underground. The ears are actually massive heat exchangers filled with blood vessels that allow the fox to dissipate excess body heat into the cooler night air. The fennec fox has thick fur that seems counterintuitive for a desert animal, but it actually serves multiple purposes. The fur insulates the fox against the cold desert nights, but it also protects against the intense heat of the day when the fox is sleeping in its underground burrow. The soles of the fennec's feet are covered with thick fur that protects them from the hot sand and provides traction on shifting surfaces. These foxes can survive without drinking water, extracting all the moisture they need from their food, which includes insects, small rodents, birds, and eggs. The Dorcas gazelle, another Sahara resident, has its own remarkable adaptations. This small, elegant antelope, with its distinctive curved horns, can survive in areas receiving less than 1 inch of rainfall per year. Like many desert animals, it can extract most of the water it needs from the plants it eats, particularly the leaves, flowers, and pods of acacia trees. During the hottest part of the day, Dorcas gazelles rest in the shade, becoming active in the cooler hours of early morning and evening. Their tan coloring provides camouflage against the sand and rocks, and their slender build allows them to move quickly across the desert when needed. The Addax antelope, sometimes called the white antelope or screwhorn antelope, is critically endangered now, with fewer than 500 individuals remaining in the wild. These magnificent creatures once roamed the Sahara in large herds, but hunting and habitat loss have pushed them to the brink of extinction. Addax are perfectly adapted for desert life. Their wide, flat hooves spread their weight across the sand, preventing them from sinking in, much like snowshoes work on snow. Their white coat reflects sunlight, helping to keep them cool during the day. They can survive indefinitely without drinking water, obtaining all the moisture they need from the sparse vegetation they eat. Their bodies are remarkably efficient at conserving water. Their urine is highly concentrated, and they can allow their body temperature to rise during the day, reducing the need for cooling through evaporation. The dromedary camel, though domesticated for thousands of years, still displays the remarkable adaptations that allowed its wild ancestors to thrive in the desert. Camels can drink up to 130 liters of water in just 13 minutes, rehydrating after long periods without access to water. Their bodies can tolerate a loss of up to 30% of their body weight in water, a level that would be fatal to most mammals. The hump, contrary to popular belief, doesn't store water but fat, which can be metabolized for both energy and water when food is scarce. A well-fed camel's hump stands upright, but if the camel has been surviving on its fat reserves, the hump may become floppy and lean to one side. Camels have a double row of eyelashes and can close their nostrils completely, protecting against blowing sand during storms. Their thick lips allow them to eat thorny plants that other animals can't consume. Their blood cells are oval-shaped rather than round, which allows blood to continue flowing even when the camel is dehydrated and the blood becomes thick. Their body temperature can vary by 6 degrees Celsius over the course of a day, reducing the need for cooling mechanisms during the hot afternoon hours. Among the smaller creatures, the jerboas are particularly fascinating. These tiny rodents look like miniature kangaroos with long hind legs and long tufted tails that help them balance as they hop across the sand. The lesser Egyptian jerboa can travel up to 10 kilometers in a single night, searching for seeds and plants. Impressive for an animal that's only 5 to 15 centimeters long. Like many desert animals, jerboas never need to drink water, obtaining all their moisture from food. They spend the hot daylight hours in underground burrows, emerging only at night when temperatures drop. The Saharan silver ant holds the remarkable distinction of being one of the most heat-tolerant land animals on Earth. These ants only emerge when ground temperatures exceed 53 degrees Celsius, a temperature that keeps their predators safely underground. They have a very limited activity window of about 10 minutes during the hottest part of the day, during which they must find food and return to their nest. To accomplish this, they're incredibly fast, the fastest ants in the world, capable of running at speeds that, scaled to human size, would be equivalent to running at over 700 kilometers per hour. Their bodies are covered with fine silver hairs that reflect sunlight and help keep them cool, and their long legs keep their bodies elevated above the hottest sand. Among the reptiles, the sand vipers are supremely adapted to desert life. These venomous snakes have a specialized way of moving across sand called sidewinding, where they throw their body forward in loops, minimizing contact with the hot surface. They can bury themselves in sand with remarkable speed, leaving only their eyes and nostrils exposed, lying in wait for prey to pass by. Their coloring perfectly matches the sand, making them nearly invisible when buried. At night, they emerge to hunt for small rodents and birds. Desert monitor lizards, large reptiles that can grow up to 1 meter in length, are active predators that hunt during the cooler parts of the day. They eat a variety of prey, including insects, small mammals, birds, and eggs. These lizards can tolerate higher body temperatures than most reptiles, allowing them to remain active in conditions that would force other animals to seek shelter. They are excellent diggers, creating burrows where they can escape the extreme temperatures. Scorpions, including the infamous deathstalker, are perfectly suited to desert life. As arachnids, they have exoskeletons that minimize water loss, and they can survive on very little food. The deathstalker scorpion, despite its fearsome name and potent venom, is quite small, usually only about 8 centimeters long. It's nocturnal, spending days hidden under rocks or in burrows, emerging at night to hunt insects and spiders. One of the scorpion's most remarkable features is that it glows under ultraviolet light due to fluorescent chemicals in its exoskeleton. Scientists aren't entirely sure why scorpions evolved this trait, though theories suggest it might help them avoid dangerous levels of light exposure, as they can sense the UV light themselves and retreat to darker areas. Bird life in the Sahara is more diverse than you might expect, particularly near oases and water sources. The North African ostrich, also called the red-necked ostrich, is the largest living bird, standing up to 9 feet tall. These impressive birds once ranged widely across the Sahara, but habitat loss and hunting have greatly reduced their numbers. they're now found in only 6 of the 18 countries where they once lived. Ostriches can't fly, but they're incredibly fast runners, capable of speeds up to 70 kilometers per hour. They can survive on very little water, obtaining most of their moisture from the plants they eat. Various species of raptors hunt in the desert skies. Desert eagle owls hunt at night, using their exceptional hearing to locate small mammals in the darkness. During the day, they roost in rock crevices or caves, their mottled brown and grey plumage providing perfect camouflage against stone. Other birds of prey, including various species of falcons and hawks, patrol the skies during daylight hours, their sharp eyes scanning for movement below. Even in the driest parts of the desert, life persists. The darkling beetle has developed an ingenious method for obtaining water in one of Earth's driest environments. In the early morning, these beetles climb to the top of dunes and position themselves in a particular posture, head down and rear end up. As fog rolls in from the coast or dew forms on their bodies, water droplets condense on their shells and roll down into their mouths. It's not much water, but in a place where annual rainfall might be less than 3 inches, every drop counts. Dung beetles, famous for their behavior of rolling balls of dung, serve an important ecological function in the desert, breaking down and recycling the waste of larger animals. These beetles navigate using the stars and the Milky Way, one of the few insects known to use celestial navigation. On moonless nights, they orient themselves using the bright band of the Milky Way, demonstrating that these tiny creatures are, in their own way, just as connected to the cosmos as any human lying beneath the stars. The plants, too, are easy to overlook, but fascinating once you start paying attention. The vegetation of the Sahara represents one of nature's great accomplishments. Species that have evolved remarkable strategies, not just to survive, but to thrive in one of Earth's harshest environments. These plants must deal with extreme heat, intense solar radiation, minimal and unpredictable rainfall, and sandy or rocky soil that holds few nutrients. Yet they persist, each species with its own ingenious solutions to the desert's challenges. Date palms cluster around oases, their roots reaching down to underground water. These trees are not native to the Sahara, but were introduced by humans thousands of years ago and have become an integral part of oasis ecosystems. A mature date palm can have roots extending 30 meters or more into the ground, tapping into deep aquifers. The trees are remarkably productive, with a single palm capable of producing up to 100 kilograms of dates per year. The dates themselves are an incredibly efficient food source, high in sugar and nutrients, and they can be dried and stored for long periods, making them ideal for desert travelers. The relationship between humans and date palms in the Sahara goes back millennia. The palms provide food. Their fronds can be woven into baskets and mats. Their trunks can be used for building, and the shade beneath them creates microclimates where other plants can grow. Under the canopy of date palms in traditional oases, you might find smaller fruit trees like figs, pomegranates, and citrus, as well as vegetables and grains. This multi-layered agricultural system has sustained human communities in the desert for thousands of years. Acacia trees, tough and thorny, survive in wadis and other areas where water occasionally flows. The Sahara is home to several species of acacia, each adapted to slightly different conditions. These trees have extraordinarily deep root systems, sometimes extending 40 meters down to reach groundwater. During the brief periods when rain falls and water flows through the wadis, the acacias can absorb and store water in their tissues, allowing them to survive for months or even years until the next rainfall. The acacia's thorns serve multiple purposes. They protect the tree from being eaten by herbivores. Though some animals like camels and gazelles have tough mouths that can handle them, the thorns also create tiny areas of shade that reduce water loss from the tree's surface. Some acacia species have a symbiotic relationship with ants, which live in the tree's thorns and defend it against other insects in exchange for shelter and food from the tree's nectar glands. Acacia flowers are small but abundant, providing important food for insects, which in turn attract birds and other insectivores. The seed pods are an important food source for many desert animals. When conditions are right, usually after rain, acacias can leaf out extensively, but during dry periods, they may shed their leaves entirely to conserve water, continuing photosynthesis through their green bark. The camel thorn, despite its name, is actually a species of acacia called Vachellia areoloba. This tree is particularly well adapted to extreme aridity. Its deep taproot can reach water more than 60 meters below the surface, one of the deepest root systems known among desert plants. The tree produces hard, woody pods that are rich in protein and are an important food source for many animals. The wood is extremely dense and makes excellent charcoal, which has led to over-harvesting in some areas. Colocynth, also called bitter apple or bitter cucumber, is a vine that produces small, hard, round fruits about the size of an orange. The fruits are extremely bitter and toxic to humans in large quantities, though they have been used in traditional medicine in small doses. The plant's survival strategy is different from the trees. Rather than having extremely deep roots, colocynth has thick, fleshy roots that act like underground storage organs, holding water and nutrients that allow the plant to survive long dry periods. When rain finally comes, the vine grows rapidly, producing leaves, flowers, and fruit in a short period before the water runs out. The desert gourd has similar adaptations, with tuberous roots that can store water and nutrients. These plants seem to appear from nowhere after a rain, sprouting from roots that may have been dormant for months or years, growing rapidly to complete their life cycle before the soil dries out again. Their fruits, while not edible, are used by some desert peoples for making containers or rattles. Tamarisk trees, also called salt cedars, are found along desert watercourses and in areas with high soil salinity. These trees have a unique adaptation. They can tolerate and even thrive in salty conditions that would kill most plants. They actually excrete excess salt through glands on their leaves, which then falls to the ground, making the soil around them even saltier. This might seem counterproductive, but it's actually a competitive strategy, creating soil conditions that prevent other plants from growing nearby. In the highlands and mountainous regions of the Sahara, there are relict populations of plants from an earlier, wetter era. The Saharan cypress, found in the Tassili Neger Mountains in Algeria and the Tibesti Mountains in Chad, is one of the oldest living tree species. Individual trees can live for more than 2,000 years, and they're remnants of a time when the Sahara had a more Mediterranean climate. These cypresses grow extremely slowly in the harsh mountain environment, but their longevity means they serve as living archives of climate history. Olive trees, another relic species, can be found in some of the Saharan mountain ranges. These wild olives are different from the cultivated varieties grown in the Mediterranean, though they're the same species. They're smaller, more gnarled, adapted to survive on very little water. Some botanists believe these populations have been isolated for thousands of years evolving in isolation as the surrounding lowlands became drier. Perhaps the most remarkable plants in the Sahara are the ephemerals, annual plants that complete their entire life cycle in a matter of weeks or even days. These plants exist for most of their lives as seeds lying dormant in the soil, sometimes for years, waiting for rain. When rain finally comes, the seeds germinate almost immediately, and the desert erupts in a brief but spectacular bloom. The timing has to be precise. If the seeds germinate too early, before enough rain has fallen, the seedlings will die. If they wait too long, the soil will dry out before they can complete their life cycle. The seeds have evolved complex mechanisms for detecting the right conditions. They can sense the amount of water in the soil, the temperature, even the length of day. Only when all the conditions are right will they germinate. Once germinated, these plants grow with remarkable speed. Within days, tiny seedlings appear. Within a week or two, they've developed leaves and begun photosynthesizing. Within 3 to 4 weeks, they've flowered, been pollinated by the insects that also emerge after rain and produce seeds. Then, as the soil dries out, the adult plants die, leaving behind seeds that will wait for the next rain, which might come in a few months or might not come for years. During these brief bloom periods, parts of the desert that appeared completely barren can be carpeted with flowers. Bright yellows, purples, reds, and whites create a landscape that seems impossible given the surrounding aridity. These blooms are important, not just for the plants themselves, but for the entire desert ecosystem. They provide sudden, abundant food for insects, which in turn feed birds and other insectivores. Seeds from the ephemeral plants become food for rodents and birds. Grasses in the Sahara have their own set of adaptations. Many are perennials with deep root systems that allow them to survive dry periods as dormant roots, sending up new shoots when moisture becomes available. The roots of these grasses help stabilize the soil and prevent erosion. In areas where grasses are overgrazed, the loss of this root structure can lead to increased erosion and desertification. Some plants have evolved photosynthetic pathways that are more water efficient than the standard process used by most plants. CAM, photosynthesis, used by many succulents, involves opening the stomata to take in carbon dioxide. Only at night, when temperatures are cooler and humidity is higher, reducing water loss. The carbon dioxide is stored and then used for photosynthesis during the day when the stomata are closed. The distribution of plants in the Sahara is far from uniform. In the hyper-arid core of the desert, where some areas might go years without rain, plant life is virtually absent. These areas are among the most barren places on Earth. Vast expanses of sand or rock with no visible vegetation. But even here, life persists in the form of dormant seeds and in microbial communities that live beneath the surface. As you move toward the desert margins, both north and south, vegetation becomes more abundant. The northern margins along the Mediterranean coast and the Atlas Mountains receive more regular winter rainfall. The southern margins in the Sahel region receive summer monsoon rains. These marginal areas support grasslands and scrublands that can sustain larger populations of animals and humans. Understanding the plants of the Sahara helps us understand the desert as a functioning ecosystem rather than just an empty wasteland. Every plant here is part of a web of relationships, providing food and shelter for animals, stabilizing soil, contributing to the cycling of nutrients. The adaptations these plants have evolved represent millions of years of natural selection, fine-tuning species to survive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. They remind us that life is remarkably tenacious, finding ways to persist even in places that seem fundamentally inhospitable. As your time in the desert comes to an end, as you prepare to leave the camp and head back toward civilization, there's often a reluctance to go. The modern world, with its noise and complexity and endless demands, seems particularly unappealing after the simplicity of a night in the desert. There's a purity to this experience, a directness. You eat when you're hungry. You sleep when you're tired. You watch the sun and the stars move across the sky, marking time in the oldest way humans know. The journey back out of the dunes is the reverse of the journey in, but it feels different. Leaving, you carry something with you, an intangible gift from the desert. Maybe it's a sense of perspective, an understanding that your problems, while real, are also small in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it's a renewed appreciation for the natural world, for places that haven't been paved over or built upon. Maybe it's simply a memory of beauty, of a night when you lay beneath more stars than you knew existed and felt truly connected to the universe. The Sahara has been many things to many people throughout history. To the traders who crossed it in caravans, bringing salt and gold and spices and slaves, it was a treacherous but navigable obstacle. a sea of sand that had to be crossed to reach markets on the other side, to the nomadic peoples who made it their home. It's a landscape of subtle riches, of places known only to them, where water can be found, where grazing is possible at certain times of year, where life can be sustained. To scientists, it's a laboratory, a place to study adaptation and evolution, climate change and geology. The Sahara is helping us understand what happens when climates shift dramatically, how ecosystems respond to extreme conditions, how life itself can persist in the most unlikely places. To astronomers, it's a window to the universe, a place where the clarity of the air and the absence of light pollution allow for observations that would be impossible in more populated areas. Professional observatories have been built in desert locations around the world for this reason. And to travelers, to people seeking something beyond their ordinary experience, the Sahara offers a different kind of gift. It offers silence and space and time to think. It offers beauty that doesn't rely on human creation. It offers a reminder that there are still places on this planet that are wild and vast and largely untouched by human hands. Sleeping under the stars in the Sahara is, in the end, a simple thing. You lie down on a mattress on the sand. You pull blankets over yourself against the cold, and you look up at the sky. That's all. But in that simplicity, there's something profound. For one night, you're not separated from the natural world by walls and roofs and artificial light. You're part of it, lying on the earth, breathing the air, watching the same stars that humans have watched for hundreds of thousands of years. The experience changes people, often in subtle ways they don't recognize until later. They might find themselves looking up at the night sky more often, even from their home in the city, remembering how many stars are really up there, hidden by light pollution. They might find themselves more patient with small frustrations, remembering how vast the universe is and how brief our time in it. They might find themselves wanting to travel more, to seek out other experiences of natural beauty, other moments of connection with the world beyond human construction. Or they might simply carry the memory, taking it out occasionally like a treasured photograph, remembering the feeling of lying beneath that impossible sky, the way the Milky Way arched overhead like a river of light, the profound silence, the cold air on their face, and the warmth of blankets around their body, the sense of being very small and also part of something infinitely large. The Sahara will still be there, long after you've returned to your normal life. The dunes will continue their slow migration across the landscape. The stars will continue their ancient dance across the sky. The desert creatures will continue their nighttime activities, leaving tracks in the sand that the wind will erase by morning. The Berber people will continue to welcome travelers, sharing their culture and their knowledge of this harsh and beautiful landscape. And perhaps someday you'll return. Many people do. There's something about the desert that calls to them, that makes them want to experience it again. Maybe they'll spend more time there next visit, traveling deeper into the dunes, spending multiple nights under the stars, learning more about the ecology and the geology and the culture. Or maybe they'll just want to recapture that one perfect night to lie beneath the stars again and feel that same sense of wonder and peace. For now, though, as this journey comes to an end, as we leave behind the golden dunes and the starlit sky, take with you what you've experienced. Remember the vastness, remember the beauty, remember the silence and the stars and the sense of connection to something larger than yourself. The desert teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches that humans are not the center of the universe, that we're just one small part of an incomprehensibly large cosmos, but that being small doesn't diminish us. If anything, it frees us, releasing us from the pressure to be larger or more important than we are, allowing us to simply exist, to be present, to appreciate the brief moment we have in this vast universe. Thank you for joining me on this journey to the Sahara, to that night beneath the stars. If you've enjoyed this sleepy travel story, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel and perhaps leave a like. It helps others discover these journeys, and it lets me know that these stories resonate with you. But more than that, I hope this has given you a moment of peace, a brief escape, and perhaps planted a seed of wanderlust for your own future adventures. Until next time, may your dreams be as vast as the desert sky and as peaceful as a Sahara night. Sleep well.